What's up, guys? Wanted to do a quick chat while I get ready for the day. I already washed my face and all that stuff. I actually just got a new water pick. This thing is amazing. The key is you got to close your mouth before you turn it on. Like, put it in, close your mouth, then turn it on. Otherwise, you have water everywhere. I had water all over the mirror and everything. So that was interesting. But I wanted to come on real quick and do a little bit of a chat while I get ready. I already put some lotion up on my face. Still feel a little dry. So I was watching this one video, and there was this girl, and she was talking about the idea of black girl magic. Excuse me. And it's interesting because I remember trying to have this conversation with several people over the years, and I kind of commented on her post, and I talked about, how I remember the first time that I saw a black woman, like on a corner begging. And I had so many emotions. Among those emotions was frustration, maybe even anger, if I'm really tapping into it. But what I realized was what was missing was empathy. And I realized that I didn't have empathy for the woman that was out there begging. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are going to look at this and, probably feel like whatever you feel. But listen, being honest, being truthful with you guys, I didn't feel empathy. And the reason that I didn't feel empathy was, in fact, what I said is that, man, I've never seen a black woman begging before. We're usually more resourceful. And I think I may even post it when I seen that, because I remember we were in the back of an Uber driving. We were coming back from Arkansas, and we took an Uber from the DC here to Maryland. And I remember the driver was a wreck. But nonetheless, this is where I seen it, and I remember having that comment or making that comment. And I think I did post it, on Facebook, like, man, I've never seen a black woman on a corner begging until today. And I think I probably even use the same language of, usually we're more resourceful. And so that was pretty much the gist of the comment. But then when I kind of sat back and spent time with the comment myself, I realized that what I was feeling or thinking was, or where the feeling and thoughts came from, I think, is from this whole idea of black girl magic. Like, we're so used to being a strong black woman and, black girl magic this and strong black woman that. And so there is this idea about being strong and being a black woman and what that means and what that looks like. And even for ourselves, it becomes a little distorted when we see other people not doing and pushing and grinding, in a way that we think that, we should be doing, pushing and grinding. And I think the problem obviously didn't start with black girl magic or strong black woman concept, but those ideas and concepts certainly didn't hurt or didn't help. And so I think that's where we find ourselves, just as, black women just trying to figure it out. And then feeling, I think the bigger part of it is feeling inadequate in this era of the strong black woman and black girl magic. Feeling inadequate when you're just, just living your life and doing what you do. You can sometimes feel like it's not enough. And so it's interesting because I think in one of the conversations I had last year, in our podcast, New Year Conversations, I even asked a question about, like, what do you think about the idea of the strong black woman? And the person that I was talking with was like, no, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's important. It empowers us, and, they had their perspective on it, and, it's like, okay. And then I remember even, years earlier or previous years, having this conversation with other women, it was always the same kind of sentiment that, it empowers us, it strengthens us, and, and so on. And I think I even posted something, I think the last time, like, I like the idea of the black girl magic. I like the idea of the strong black woman. But I also understand that the implications or what it implies when we use that kind of language and terminology, what it implies is that, that there is something innately magical about us. And I think that's the deception, because there is nothing innately magical about us. We work harder than most because we feel like we have to a lot of times. We go harder than most because we feel like we have to. And I would say that the problem is not in the feeling or in the doing, but it's in the why. Why do we feel? Why do we feel like we have to go harder than most, right? And then two, what do we think that we're getting out of it, or what do we think that is yielding to us, as far as perception of other people looking at us? What do we think we're getting from it? I think is a really fair and honest question. And so definitely curious and to continue to have the conversation. But what I'll say is that on this girl's post, I actually commented. So I'm interested, one, to see if anybody responds to my comment, but then also, what their response might be. Sorry, trying to find my eyeliner. But then also what their response might be. Come on, I know you're right here, probably looking me right in my face. And so I wonder for you guys, like, what do you think about this idea of the strong black woman? Or the black girl magic? Do you buy into it? Do you ascribe to it? Do you, use it in posts and things like that? And that's what I was going to say. I actually did a post, I don't know, the latter part of last year, where I mentioned something like, I think I had a picture. I think this was like when, oh gosh, it was a lot happening. There was a lot going on. And I think I posted a picture. I think I had like Simone Biles and I don't even remember who all else was in there. And I think I hashtag like Black Girl Magic or something. I literally cannot find my eyeliner, and I'm sure it is literally looking me right in my face, because that's usually, oh, here it is. I knew it was looking me right in my face. But I think I hashtag like Black Girl Magic or whatever. But, I just wanted to get you guys' thought. And then also I'll share, I remember my aunt bought me a book, and I can't remember the title of it, although I can almost see it on the bookshelf, but the title is, I cannot see the title in my mind. But the book was something about, strong black woman. And I remember her, a few years later apologizing to me for sending me that book. And she said it was for that same reason, is that, she didn't want to perpetuate this idea that black women had to be above, go above and beyond to be accepted, to be, considered strong, or, or whatever else, that those terms, whatever other pressure those terms tend to put on us. So she literally apologized for sending me that book. Although, if I'm being honest, I never read the book, but I did take pride for many years in the idea of the strong black woman. But I think, the problem with it is that it doesn't leave room for grace, when we're looking at one another and dealing with one another. This season, I'm doing Tell Yourself Your Story, and I was sharing with one of the, potential guests. I was sharing with her, I said, this isn't about the titles or the accolades or the, and I love a good accomplishment, and I love to share my accomplishment. I love wins. I love to set my mind to do something and accomplish it. Like, I love that for me, and I love that for other, women as well and men as well. I just love that for people, that we can, in this craziness of this crazy thing called life, that we can set our sights on something and actually accomplish it. I love that for us. And So I was sharing with the one girl, I said, this isn't about the accolades or the titles, like who you are beyond all that stuff or despite all that stuff or, really at the core. It's like, who are you? And that's what this series is about. It's not about, coming on and saying all the amazing, wonderful things that you were able to accomplish. And because I think that kind of, continue to perpetuate this idea of I can't be vulnerable. I can't be, I can't not have these grand dreams and these grand ideas. Some people I just want to be me. So like even in the season that I'm in, yeah, I'm working on like my PhD, and that is a huge accomplishment for me. It was something that I desired to do, and by the grace of God, I'm in strong pursuit of it. But in this season, I'm also recognizing that I don't have to do a whole bunch. Like all I have to do is what I desire to do, what I've been called to do. And I don't have this sense of, owing society, like owing society anything more than what I'm going to give to society, anything more than what I'm going to leave for society. Like I'm no longer looking to be impressive with my resume. I did this, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a da 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 da. All the different titles. And I know people like to see that, and I haven't really cracked the code. Well, I guess I know why. It's not even a matter of, cracking the code on why. People like to see it because it is inspiring and it is encouraging. And I think that's one of the responses that the girl gave during when we were talking, because we talked about this in real time on one of the episodes. I think it was who was I talking to? I can't remember, so I'm not even going to try. But it was one of those episodes, and we talked about it in real time. And we, both acknowledged that it is inspiring and encouraging to, to hear the accolades and, to see what people are doing. That is definitely encouraging. But I think what it does, though, in real life is that it creates this space of inauthenticity. Yeah, inauthentic. Like you're not being honest, you're not being real. You don't, we'll talk about like kind of blasé, like, oh, it's so hard. But we really don't talk about like the emotional toll that it takes on us. We don't talk about the mental toll. We don't talk about the destruction that it causes within a family. Like if I meet another successful woman, right? Black woman specifically, who is unmarried or divorced in pursuit of her awesome. And then there's, we put these narratives to this thing and marriage, divorce, whatever, that's for people to decide. You get to live your life the way that you live your life. But one thing that I am very adamant about, and I'm grateful for my husband as well, is that he supports me and he supports my endeavors. And I don't think that there's anything. And I remember my spiritual mentor said this. He said, marriage and mothering, that's your first ministry. God is not going to call you to be anything to the world that you are not to your family first. And I thought that was so powerful. And I'm not talking about your extended family. I'm talking about like if you're a wife, what you are to your husband, if you're a mother, what you are to your children. God's not going to call me to be an inspiration to women out there if I have nothing and I don't inspire and I'm not inspiring to my family. That's the first and foremost. So many times, marriages and relationships are suffer because we are so in pursuit of this strong black woman or this black girl magic. And I'm just really of the mindset and of the belief that God is not going to call you into all of that without having your home, which is your first ministry, in order. And my husband is good about, especially in a height of girlfriend therapy when I was so incredibly busy. And there would be times where I'm like working on something and I'm doing like this because I'm on the phone, texting or replying to emails or whatever. And he would be talking and I would hear nothing that he was saying. And he literally was like, babe, when I'm talking to you, like, it doesn't feel good for me to be talking to you and you're not hearing me. And that was a very real response. And so I think for a good portion of it, a lot of times as women, we want all the things. We want to do all the things. We don't want our lives to just measure to a wife and a mother. We want to be our individual self and express ourselves individually and all the gifts and talents that's in us. But I tell you, for those of us who are married and who were married, you have to really kind of take a step back and look at it and say, okay, how did I contribute? If you did, and maybe you didn't, right? And I'm not one to poke a woman in the eye and say that, oh, if your man cheated or if he did this, whatever, that it's the woman's fault. I'm not one to poke an eye like that. But what I do know is that men tell you what they need. They tell you whether it's when they pull back or if they're just openly verbal about, hey, this ain't working for me. They tell you what they need. And a lot of times we interpret that as, oh, you don't want me to be my best self. You're trying to you're trying to crush my dreams. You're not supportive. And we chalk it up as all these things that it's not. And the reality is, and I thank God for my spiritual mentor, because the reality is very true. God is not going to call me out here doing all the things and all this stuff and being all this to the world, and I am failing in my primary responsibilities, because all that stuff out there, that's not even secondary. That's like tertiary and beyond. My primary responsibility is my role as a wife first, my role as a mother, and not even talking on the spiritual side. If I'm talking about spiritually, my life as a Christian, that's at the top. My relationship with God, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my children. Those are the core, those are my core responsibilities. And sometimes we abandon our position as wife. We abandon our position as mother. And before y'all start coming at me about what men do, and I'm not talking about men. I'm talking about women in pursuit of this black girl magic, in pursuit of this strong black woman thing. But I am interested in hearing your thoughts. I remember the church that I went to, and I think it was, I think it was Pastor Amby. And I remember she was saying, when you follow people, like even in ministry, when you're following someone as a woman in ministry or whatever, or even just as a believer and you're following someone, do they demonstrate or exhibit the fruits of the spirit, or even the life that you see for yourself? So she talks specifically about, women who are married following single women. And, there's some virtue there, right? There's some things that you can pull from that. But when you start talking about patterning yourself or mirroring yourself off of this single woman, that could become problematic because you're a married woman. And I thought that was such a powerful statement. So one of the things when God called me to ministry, one of the people that I immediately reached out to was Joyce Myers. And she was gracious enough to respond. And, she kind of encouraged me and said, because I reached out to her to say, I was looking for a mentor in ministry. And she was gracious enough to respond. And she encouraged me to, God is your mentor in ministry. Continue to listen to the Holy Spirit, do what God's called you to do, trust what God has put in you. Like, it was a really encouraging message. I have to get the letter and I'll probably share it one day. But it was an incredibly encouraging message. And so that's the idea, is that here there is this woman in ministry operating at a level that is so incredibly in your face. And then me being a woman, coming up in ministry, married with children, it's natural for me to kind of look at her and say, hey, how did you navigate it? Because her terrain is similar to my terrain. You have to navigate your husband's feelings, your husband's thoughts. There were times, I think, you guys have seen with girlfriend therapy, my husband was there. So even in me moving in ministry, there was a demand that was automatically placed on him. So when I'm setting up and breaking down, he's doing all the heavy lifting. Like, he is literally doing all the heavy lifting. And so he had to be on board and had to be, committed to the things that God has called me to do. And the only way that he was going to be committed to that, one, is if I didn't leave him behind in my pursuit to be a strong black woman, or, this whole black girl magic. But then also being with someone who understood, when God put purpose in you and understood what that might look like. But then also me yielding when he said, hey, that's enough. I remember we were at another church, and this was when I was at the height of just doing. And I remember the pastor, wanted me to be his director of the ministry director. And I was flattered. I was excited. And I really wanted to do it. My plate was so incredibly full, but I really wanted to do it. And I remember my husband's like, no. Like, how and when and where and how, he's like, you're already taking enough time out of the family. So when and how do you think that you're going to do this? And I was so angry with him because I wanted to do it so desperately. And I remember we had a big argument about it. And then this was, I think, the situation where I was talking to my spiritual mentor, and I was like, this is, what it is. And he was like, your husband is absolutely right. And you need to listen. Right. And so, so it's an interesting concept, this black girl magic and this strong black woman. It really is an interesting concept, but I would like to encourage and challenge us to look at it, specifically as it pertains to like each individual life. Like, what are you doing in pursuit of being a magical black girl that is really taking away from your role as a wife, if you're married, as a mother, if you have children, that's really taking away from all of that. And then not only just that, but then yourself, what are you doing in pursuit of the strong black woman, or this, black girl magic that's taking away from your own mental health and wellness? So that's the question. And with that, I'm going to leave the conversation on the table. Sorry. I'm going to leave the conversation on the table for you guys to, I would love to hear your thoughts, what you feel, what you think. But yeah, that's just my little spiel this morning as I kind of do my face. I think this is nice and simple enough. I'm going to probably put a pop of color on. I do have a podcast recording this morning, so you can hear Crybaby over here. But definitely, interested. Stop crying, Crybaby. Stop. Definitely interested in hearing you guys' thoughts, on that topic. So blessings to you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and blessings.